Hello, everybody. My name is HisStory Williams, and I am so excited that you're taking time out your day to actually listen to my podcast. Now, with that being said, the first few episodes is all about teaching you how to actually do a podcast. Now, in these first few videos, I did record in my car. Now, it is not a smart decision to do such a thing while you're driving. Don't text, don't drive. It can all come wait. So just be patient. Don't do such a thing. And just keep this in mind. Even when I was recording itself, I was putting my phone actually to the side the whole time. And then I was doing actually deliveries at the same time when I was recording. But I had time in between to be able to actually put the phone up to my mouth when I needed to put the phone up to my mouth and actually put it back down. So I promise you, I was being as safe as I possibly could while I was recording this, but I do not recommend that you actually record a podcast or any video or do any texting while you're driving. So please do not do this. Please be safe. Park on the side. If you want to record in your car, just be parked on the side and not going anywhere. And just give yourself enough time to be able to record itself. Don't do anything that's going to put your family, yourself, or anybody else in danger. So don't text and drive. Don't record and drive. Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is HisStory Williams, and you're listening to the Making History Making podcast. Okay, so I am challenging myself right now, even though this is the first episode. I am challenging myself right now, hands down, to be able to do a podcast every day for the next 50 days. And the reason being is because of the fact that I'm actually going to be teaching a class about how to make podcasts. And I'm so excited. I'm ready to make this rock. I've done a lot of podcasts and fixing for some podcasts and crazy stuff for podcasts. And I'm so excited to announce that on Monday, March 23rd, 2020, this year, at the Herrick District Library, if you're on in Holland, I guess you would say, or if you know anything about Holland, Michigan, it's on the south side of Holland, and it's the main branch of the Holland Museum. It's going to be in the auditorium. It's going to be from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Which, by the way, I wanted to add to make sure that you check out the rest of our articles or see some of our services as well on our auditorinarrative.com page. Again, that's auditorinarrative.com. So today's episode or show, whatever you want to call it, I'm going to consider it challenge number 1. That's my name for this one. It's challenge number 1. What I'm going to talk about is over the next 50 days, I'm hoping to be able to teach you about podcasts and teach you actually how to get started with it. I know that the first thing that's so funny is people want to start a podcast. People want to do that thing. And so I'm going to make it simple as much as I possibly can. I'm going to kind of go through the motions as much as I possibly can because that's what I did. And so I'm hoping to be able to actually help you guys and teach you guys the things that you need to know to be able to get started and following your dreams and being able to do a podcast. Again, my name is HisStory Williams, and let's get started. Now, so first thing first is this. Before I even get to my serious topic right now, I will talk about this, is that I'm going to be recording in different methods that people usually use to record their podcast and people who start out. So over the course of time, you're going to realize, you're going to probably see that, hey, that this is possible. I can start off this way and still have a good sound. My specific thing that I studied when I was in undergrad was multimedia journalism. I focused on radio broadcast and sound design. And the biggest thing is your movies, your film, your podcast itself won't sound good unless it has a hot, solid sound. And the biggest thing is that people take advantage of sound. They just put out a camera and they just go to talking. And that's perfectly fine. And I'm gonna do an episode recording with that sound. But I'm gonna start off first thing first with the thing that comes in the box with your cell phone, which is usually your phone, your charger, your block, as well as also your headphones. So usually they're earbuds, and that's pretty funny because of the fact that some earbuds are pretty good. I would say some of my favorite earbuds that comes in the box are technically the Apple brand version of the earbuds, the AirPods. They are my favorite when it comes to sound. Not necessarily of the listening quality. The listening quality, I would say, stick to your Samsungs with the AKG brand itself. Or, for example, stick to just regular standard earbuds. The problem is, of course, the earbuds, the AirPods are uncomfortable. You can't sit in your ear, especially if you're doing a podcast for 30 to 45 minutes. I think that it's very uncomfortable. It's very weird because you've got to move your head, and if you're black or Latino, you know what I mean, like my people are, you know what I mean, we talk with our hands, we move our heads and stuff like that, we get a little sassy. So with that being said, that's and I don't mean that for anybody else. I mean that like you can possibly have those earbuds or whatever AirPods earpods sit in your ear, but that doesn't mean that it necessarily be the best quality experience that you have. Now, AirPods are a different story from the earpods. With that being said, let's start with me. I have a regular Samsung Galaxy Note phone, and I have my earbuds that's inside my ear. That's what you hear me right now. The microphone is about maybe 3 to 4 inches away from my mouth, which most microphones you have to have it about that same range with about 45-degree angle. So of course the sound that I'm making is going over the microphone. It's not necessarily catching the part of the microphone that's most important. And so the experience that you're going to have is honestly still going to be good because of the fact that the microphone is pretty much like a lav microphone. I don't know if you know what a lavalier microphone is, so let me just kind of explain. If you ever see a TV show and they got that little black spot that you see, it looks like a clip-on or look like a brooch on somebody's chest, that's a lavalier microphone. Most lavalier microphones are now changing colors so people can wear certain outfits and actually the lavalier microphone actually match the outfit that the person is wearing. And I'm going to do an episode with a lavalier microphone as well that I've gotten from when I was working at Best Buy. And so you're going to get that same experience with that ish. Lavalier microphones are meant to be stereo or mono microphones. They're designed to actually give you the full recording job. That's what lavalier microphones are supposed to be for. They're supposed to be built for like actual solid sound. And so most people get this misconception that they need everything in the world to be able to record this podcast. They need about 2 or 3 microphones because of the fact that they're going to be recording groups and stuff like that, and they need these podcast kits. And I'm not saying that that's the wrong decision. Definitely, if you want to go on eBay, go buy that microphone kit if you can afford it. But don't feel like that's a necessity to your sound, your actual podcast sound setup as well. I will say that it will definitely make you sound more professional. It will make you sound more put together, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you cannot do the podcast without it. You could just use the stuff simply at home. And that's why right now, for example, I'm driving my car. My phone is put to the side while I'm just talking and I'm just going at it, which most people who start off podcasts, they start off podcasting and start vlogging and stuff like that. They do it while they're driving their car. And the crazy thing is, right now, probably you just heard a big bump while I was driving over the railroad. the cool thing about it is the fact that when you sit in the car, it feels more like you're in the studio, you're in the booth, you got your time, you're solitary, and you don't feel like somebody's laughing at you or joking with you, but you still get that same, very much so, that experience. So I'm here to say that simply your earbuds and your headphones will be perfect for this. Being able to actually just have that experience and being able to get started. It's very much so possible to be able to just start doing your podcast from right now. And I will say this, that like my first podcast, man, I went and got so many crazy things. I was originally, they had a radio studio at school, so I was using the radio booth at my school, and then when I figured out that, hey, I can use a microphone, I bought this collar gaming headset, and I went to go to like doing my first podcast as well with the Ology show, and it was a cool and nice experience, but I knew that there was better out there. With that being said, so my first experience, I kept telling myself that I needed to be like Mike and Mike. That was my people that I used to listen to a lot, was Mike and Mike. Mike Golick and Mike Greenberg on the morning ESPN show. I used to listen to them all day, and it was so crazy because I felt like I needed to actually be like them, and I used to need these broadcaster microphones, and that's what they have usually too, is these broadcaster microphones for all these shows. I thought I needed that, and I definitely will say that it benefited me to have these big old broadcaster microphones, but it did not necessarily need to be a necessity for me to get started. And that's the hardest part that people can't get over, is getting started. And so I want to tell you that you can start your podcast right now just by simply just using a voice recorder, using your headset, and using your cell phone, and you'll be straight. So let's go on to like our next thing that I want to talk to you about it. Give me 1 second. My name is HisStory Williams, and this is the Making History podcast. Okay, so quick pro tip before we move on to our next thing. All right, breaks. Breaks are super important. They're fucking important as like anything in the world. I swear to you. Like, a lot of people make mistakes by just going on and on and on and on, and they forget to take breaks. They forget to be human. And a lot of times it's weird when you listen to like audio or you're watching a movie. If you ever watch a movie, that's kind of like your montage time, or your time where they show like the people doing B-roll or something like that. So what it is basically you take a quick break. What I mean by that is, not only does it benefit, for example, if you have advertisers or so on, like it gives you time to process what you're going to talk about next. It gives you time to figure out what you're going to do next. It gives your brain time to just basically say, I done threw up all of this information. Now I can just kind of take a breather before the next round. And nobody really goes into a fight without a break, and that's why you have different rounds. In this case, rounds are segments, and so I would say the biggest thing is taking a break. So for example, if you have a 30-minute podcast, I would say take a break every like 10, maybe every 12 minutes. Whereas so that means that you have like 2 breaks. So you'll have 2 breaks, and then like a small break, and then come back to like an actual show. Or you can make it actually every 7 minutes to 10 minutes. I'm sorry, let me correct myself. 7 to 10 minutes. When you're doing an hour podcast, I would say do one every 15 to 25 minutes. And the only reason why I recommend doing that is because of the fact that it just, like I said, you get a little time, you can stretch out that, consider your hour podcast the marathon. That's the one that radio hosts do, and that's what regular, like normal average podcasters do. They take this serial break. Now, unless you're able to like do it by yourself, I would recommend doing it that way. If you're doing it with 2 people, that's a total different story. You can piggyback ideas off of each other. You can kind of take a break in between those segments. So for example, if I was having a conversation with somebody, it would be a different story when it comes to taking your breaks, because you can take your breaks literally because of the fact it's not your turn to speak. And that's another thing, is learning to be able to actually, in the middle of a segment, letting a person finish out their thought and then going on and then giving your point opinion. Now, don't get me wrong, they have like rambling and kind of like basic like shit talk, right, between each other. But realistically, that doesn't change the fact that you're taking breaks and taking time to be able to actually let the person finish out their thought. That is the huge thing that people mess up in sound and in audio production, is that they don't let stuff marinate, they don't let stuff breathe. So that's why I recommend letting stuff breathe and taking breaks. Breaks are so important to be able to give an actual good podcast, give a good performance audio wise, is being able to do that. So I think that, like, realistically, like, the two things or the three things that we learned in this first episode is that you can do it with just a little bit of equipment that you get in the cell phone box. And then the second thing that you learn is taking breaks when you're actually talking. And I'm going to talk about more like how to develop content later on. That's going to be more so for like maybe episode 30, 40, right? I would say that like that's the biggest thing, is learning these two things first, is that you could do it. And if you do it, you got to learn how to take breaks and being able to actually concentrate on what your idea is. It's like writing a paper. It's not necessarily just being able to just go out there and just shit talk. Even when comedians go out there, or people who go regularly on radio saying, I can go on the radio and this is my show, I could do whatever I want. Well, okay, that may be so, but realistically, you still have to have a straightforward idea. You have to have some consistency to be able to actually give a great show. So, huge thing is, just make sure that you just don't forget that it's okay to be human. You got to make sure that people on the microphone that's listening to you over the microphone remembers that you're human. Okay? So, I hope that you guys enjoyed this first challenge episode. I got to talk about getting started, and I'm ready for the 49 other episodes, be able to talk to you about it, about how to start a podcast and what's on my mind when certain things. And I didn't even get to talk about what I really wanted to talk about this week. I just got so hell-bent on being able to teach you about your actual podcast itself. I love talking about how to do these type of things, is starting podcasts and producing podcasts and making the best show that you could possibly have. And so with that, I hope that you guys enjoyed my show. My name is HisStory Williams, and this is the Making History podcast. And I want to make sure that I remind you guys, make sure that you are following us on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, as well as also looking at our webpage, which is auditorinarrative.com. And make sure that you stay up to date with our news and content. We got Talk a Big Game podcast and online show, as well as also we have Streetwise Post, which is our digital magazine. And we also provide services such as videography, media consultations, as well as photography. So make sure you check us out. And then the last thing is, make sure that if you are in the West Michigan area, come out, support your boy, as I'm going to teach you guys on how to start your first podcast, which is at the Herrick District Library in Holland, Michigan. It's on the south side of Holland, and it's from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. And I'm just excited. I'm ready to be able to actually just teach you on how to get started in your dream. Again, my name is HisStory Williams, and I hope that you enjoy this show today.